"You're suspended for 1 month. Without pay." The words hit before I could brace for them. My stomach dropped so fast it felt physical, like missing a step on a staircase. Across from me, Andrew Whitaker didn't look angry. He didn't look disappointed. He looked relieved, as if something heavy had finally been set down on me. I opened my mouth to speak. He raised a hand. "This decision is final." Something hot crawled up my neck. My hands curled into fists under the table. $30 million. And somehow this was mine now. The fluorescent lights above us buzzed softly. The room smelled like stale coffee and cheap air freshener. Everything felt too bright, too sharp, like my brain was trying to process the impossible while my body screamed at me to run. But I didn't run. I sat there, frozen, while he shuffled papers that didn't matter and pretended this conversation was difficult for him. It wasn't difficult. It was calculated. And I was the target. "You'll turn in your laptop today," he continued, not meeting my eyes. "Security will deactivate your access by noon." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. No questions. No discussion. No explanation of how a deal involving legal, compliance, and executive approvals had suddenly collapsed into my sole responsibility. Behind him, an HR representative named Patricia sat with her hands folded. She avoided my gaze like I carried a contagious disease. I realized then this wasn't discipline. It was theater. And I was the sacrifice. "Do you understand?" Andrew asked, his tone flat, rehearsed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I nodded once, slowly, because anything else would have given him what he wanted. A reaction he could weaponize later. "Good," he said, already reaching for his phone like I'd ceased to exist. The meeting was over. My career as I knew it was over. But something else was just beginning. I stood up on legs that felt unfamiliar. Andrew didn't. "Take the rest of the day," he said, eyes glued to his screen. Not a courtesy. Command. As I walked out, conversations along the hallway faltered. Someone whispered my name. Someone else looked away. I felt it then. The unmistakable burn of public disgrace. My desk sat in the open floor plan, exposed to everyone. I grabbed my personal notebook, my water bottle, and the framed photo of my niece. Everything else could stay. People pretended to work. Keyboards clacked a little too deliberately. Phones were suddenly fascinating. Past Trevor from sales. We'd worked together for 3 years. He didn't say a word. Past Keisha from operations. She mouthed "I'm sorry" but didn't stop walking. By the time the elevator doors closed, my chest was tight, my pulse roaring in my ears. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't a suspension. It was a statement. My name is Elena Johnson. I was the senior account director on the largest deal our division had seen in 5 years. 12 years at the company. 0 disciplinary actions. A reputation for fixing problems before they became headlines. And I'd just been escorted out like I'd committed a crime. What they didn't know, what Andrew couldn't afford them knowing, was that I remember everything. I'm the person who triple-checks invoices because I once missed a decimal point in my first job and never forgot the shame. I'm the person who keeps backup notes because I learned early that memory fails but paper doesn't. Andrew had spent 12 years watching me work. He knew I was meticulous. He knew I documented everything. He was counting on me being too shocked to use it. That was his first mistake. His second was thinking a month of silence would break me. It wouldn't. The deal had been months in the making. Late nights, cross-country calls, legal reviews stacked on legal reviews. I did my part flawlessly. The client was a manufacturing giant looking to modernize their supply chain. Our software promised efficiency gains they couldn't ignore. The contract was worth $30 million over 3 years, the kind of number that gets you promoted or fired depending on how it lands. I'd handled negotiations with their procurement team. I'd coordinated demos with their operations staff. I'd answered every question, addressed every concern, smoothed every wrinkle. But one piece had always bothered me. A compliance addendum Andrew insisted was handled. "Don't worry about it," he'd said during our last check-in. "I'll take care of that personally." I had worried anyway, because Andrew Whitaker didn't take care of things personally. He delegated. He avoided paperwork. He thrived on charm and left the details to people like me. 3 weeks before the collapse, I'd sent a follow-up email. Subject: Compliance Addendum. Final confirmation needed. Body: Andrew, just confirming the compliance submission was finalized and filed with the regulatory board. Can you send me the confirmation number for my records? Want to make sure we're covered before the contract signing. No reply. 2 days later, he'd forwarded a vague approval note from compliance. No attachment. No confirmation number. Just a brief message. All set. Moving forward. Something in my gut tightened then. Felt too casual, too quick. But what was I supposed to do? Accuse my manager of lying? Question his competence in front of executives? I printed the email. Filed it in my notebook. Added a note. No confirmation number received. Follow up if needed. That note would change everything. But I didn't know it yet. When the regulators flagged the missing document, the deal unraveled fast. It started with a call from the client's legal team. Polite but firm. "We can't proceed without verified compliance documentation." Our legal team scrambled. Compliance went into crisis mode. Andrew held an emergency meeting. And in that meeting he pointed at me. "Elena was managing the compliance timeline," he said smoothly. "I'm not sure what happened, but we'll get to the bottom of it. Not we dropped the ball. Not, I'll check my records. Elena was managing." I tried to speak. He cut me off. "Let's not make this worse. We need solutions, not excuses." The room fell silent. I felt every eye on me, heavy with judgment. By the end of the day, my name was the only one being whispered. Andrew didn't defend me. He didn't ask questions. He redirected. And it worked. Suspension is a strange thing. You're still employed but erased. No emails. No calls. No one checking in to ask how you're doing or if you need anything. The first few days I kept refreshing my inbox out of habit. Nothing. Not even automated system notifications. My work phone sat silent on the counter, a black rectangle of rejection. That silence told me everything I needed to know. They weren't confused about what happened. They were hoping it would stick. Hoping I'd slink away quietly. Hoping I'd take the blame and disappear so they could move on without the mess of an investigation. Andrew had built a narrative and I was the villain in it. But narratives only work when people don't fact-check. And I was about to fact-check everything. I pulled out my personal work notebook. Action items. I'd always written everything down. Old habit, drilled into me by a mentor years ago. Paper doesn't crash, she used to say. And it doesn't get, accidentally, deleted. I flipped through the pages, my pulse picking up speed as the timeline became clearer. There it was. March 14th. Compliance addendum flagged during legal review. Assigned to Andrew per his request. March 28th. Follow-up email sent. No response. March 30th. Vague approval forwarded. No confirmation number. April 12th. Deal signing scheduled. April 10th. Regulators flag missing documentation. Clear as day. I hadn't dropped the ball. Andrew had. And then he'd handed it to me and said I fumbled. My hands shook as I closed the notebook. Not from fear. From anger. Cold, sharp, clarifying anger. Using my personal login credentials. Fully authorized for remote document access. I logged into the company's shared repository. I searched for the compliance addendum. The system said it should have been filed under the client's contract folder, tagged with a tracking number. It wasn't there. Not archived. Not rejected. Never submitted. My pulse slowed. The anger sharpened into something colder, more focused. I expanded the search. Cross-referenced file names. Checked submission logs. Nothing. If Andrew had submitted the document, there would be a digital trail. Our compliance system was designed that way, Every submission generated a timestamp, a confirmation email, and a reference number. None of those existed. But something else did. A certification form. Digitally signed by Andrew Whitaker. Dated April 8. Subject: Final compliance verification. Contract ready for execution. 'Twas a lie. And it was traceable. The deeper I looked, the clearer it became. He hadn't missed it by accident. He'd buried it. I found internal comments in the compliance system. Quiet reassignments. A decision to circle back later because the client's moving fast and we don't want to slow momentum. Andrew's words. Timestamped March 16th. Later never came. Until the regulators showed up asking questions. Until the client threatened to walk. Until someone needed to take the fall. Then later became Elena's responsibility. Took screenshots. Saved them to 3 different drives. Printed physical copies. If Andrew wanted to play the blame game, I'd make sure everyone knew who was actually holding the cards. But I didn't move yet. Timing mattered. And I needed to be sure. HR called on day 19 of my suspension. Elena, hi. It's Patricia. We just need you to clarify a few things about the timeline before your suspension ends. Her voice was careful, measured, like she was reading from a script. I smiled to myself. Of course, I said. When would you like to meet? Tomorrow at 10. We'll have Andrew and a few others present to make sure we're all aligned. Aligned. Corporate speak for we've already decided, but we'll let you talk so it looks fair. Sounds good, I said. I'll bring my records. Your records? Yes. Emails. Just to make sure we're all on the same page. Another pause. Longer this time. Great. See you then. She hung up quickly. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. They were nervous. They should be. When I walked back into the office, heads turned. Same hallway. Same desk. Same fluorescent lighting that made everyone look half dead. But something was different. Me. I wasn't the same person who'd walked out 3 weeks ago. Silent and humiliated. I was calmer now. Focused. Armed. Andrew was already in the meeting room when I arrived. He looked up surprised. Not angry. Not defensive. Nervous. That was new. Patricia sat beside him, along with Vincent from legal and a senior compliance officer named Bryn who I'd worked with on other deals. Bryn looked uncomfortable. That told me something. Elena, Patricia began, folding her hands. Thank you for coming in. We wanted to go over the timeline of the contract process and understand where the breakdown occurred. I set my notebook on the table. 3 printed files beside it. Happy to help, I said. They asked me to explain my process. So I did. Slowly. Carefully. Date by date. I coordinated the client demos in February. I began. Managed negotiations through March. Legal reviews were completed on March 10th. Patricia nodded, jotting notes. On March 14th, during the final legal review, compliance flagged the need for a regulatory addendum. Standard procedure for contracts over 20 million. Pause. Let that number sit. The addendum required submission to the Federal Regulatory Board with a 14-day processing window. Andrew, I glanced at him, volunteered to handle that piece personally. Said he had a direct contact who could expedite it. Andrew shifted in his seat. I followed up on March 28th via email to confirm submission. Received a vague response on March 30th. No confirmation number. No tracking reference. I slid the printed email across the table. Patricia read it. Her expression didn't change, but her pen stopped moving. On April 8th, I continued, Andrew signed a certification form stating all required documentation had been submitted and verified. I placed the certification form on the table. 2 days later, the regulators contacted the client asking for the missing addendum. That's when everything unraveled. Bryn leaned forward. And you never saw the confirmation number? No, because it was never issued. The room felt heavier with each sentence. Vincent from legal cleared his throat. Did you attempt to verify submission independently? I did, I said. After the regulators flagged it. I checked the compliance repository. No record of submission. No file. No log entry. I pulled out the final document. A screenshot of the system log with Andrew's certification highlighted next to the empty submission record. One document claims submission. The other proves none existed. Place them side by side. No commentary. Just facts. Andrew's face had gone pale. Andrew spoke too quickly. There must have been a system error, he said, his voice tight. I submitted it. I remember doing it. Maybe it didn't upload properly. Bryn shook her head slowly. That's not how this works, Andrew. The system generates automatic confirmations. If you'd submitted anything, even incorrectly, there'd be a failed upload notification. There's nothing. Then someone deleted it. He tried again. Maybe. Deletion logs are tracked, Vincent interrupted, his tone sharp, and require executive authorization. No deletions occurred in that folder. Patricia looked at Andrew. Her expression had shifted from neutral to something colder. Andrew, did you submit the compliance addendum or not? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I thought I did, he said finally, and even he didn't sound convinced. The lie hung in the air, obvious and pathetic. Bryn pulled out her laptop. Let me verify this in real time. She logged into the compliance system, projected it onto the screen. We all watched as she navigated to the client folder. No addendum. She checked submission logs. No entry under Andrew's credentials. She checked notification history. Nothing sent to the regulatory board. There's no record of any submission attempt, Bryn said quietly. Not even a draft. Andrew stared at the screen like it had betrayed him. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. It makes perfect sense, I said, my voice steady. You never submitted it. You signed a certification claiming you did. And when it fell apart, you blamed me. Patricia's pen was still now. Vincent was watching Andrew with the look of someone calculating legal liability. Andrew, Patricia said carefully, we need to step outside for a moment. Andrew stood, his movements stiff. He didn't look at me as he left the room. Didn't say a word. Patricia followed him out. Vincent and Bryn stayed behind. Bryn exhaled slowly. Elena, I'm sorry. If I'd known. You didn't know, I said. No one did. That was the point. Vincent leaned back in his chair. This is a serious compliance violation. Falsifying certification records is grounds for termination. Possibly legal action, depending on regulatory response. He nodded. He knew. The door opened. Patricia returned alone. Andrew's been asked to leave the premises while we investigate, she said. Elena, your suspension is lifted effective immediately. We'll be conducting a full review of this matter. I gathered my files. Thank you, I said. But I wasn't done yet. By the end of the week, Andrew Whitaker was terminated for falsifying compliance records. No announcement. No farewell email. Just gone. His office was cleared out by the time I returned to my desk. His nameplate removed. His desk phone disconnected. People whispered, of course. Speculation ran wild. But I didn't feed the rumor mill. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. Trevor from sales stopped by my desk. I'm sorry I didn't say anything that day. I should have. It's fine, I said. It wasn't fine. But holding grudges wasn't worth my energy. Keisha brought me coffee. You're a legend, she said. Seriously. I wasn't a legend. I was someone who kept records and refused to be erased. That's not heroic. That's just self-preservation. My suspension was formally rescinded. My record cleared. Patricia called me into her office a week later. Elena, we're offering you a role outside Andrew's former chain of command. Senior director level. Full authority over account operations. Reporting directly to the VP. It was the promotion I should have gotten a year ago. The one Andrew had blocked because he didn't want someone under him who knew more than he did. I appreciate the offer, I said. Patricia smiled, relieved. Great. We'll process the paperwork. But I'm declining. Her smile faltered. I've accepted a position elsewhere, I continued. My last day will be 2 weeks from today. She blinked. Elena, I understand this has been difficult, but it's not about difficulty, I said. It's about trust. And I don't trust a company that took 3 weeks to ask questions they should have asked on day one. Patricia didn't argue. There was nothing to argue. The new company was a competitor. Smaller, faster, hungrier. They'd reached out during my suspension after hearing through industry channels what happened. Not the rumor version. The real version. Turns out, I wasn't the only person Andrew had thrown under the bus. His reputation in the industry was worse than I'd realized. We need someone who doesn't cut corners, the VP told me during the interview. Someone who does it right, even when it's hard. That's you. I signed the offer letter the same day Andrew's termination was announced. Poetic timing. The salary was better. The equity package was better. The respect was better. But more than that, I'd be working somewhere that didn't need a scapegoat to survive mistakes. That mattered more than money. On my last day, I cleaned out my desk. 12 years of work reduced to 2 boxes. Photos. Awards. Coffee mug someone gave me 5 Christmases ago. Patricia walked by. We'll miss you, Elena. No, you won't, I said, not unkindly. You'll replace me and move on. That's how this works. She didn't argue. Carried my boxes to the elevator. Pressed the button. The doors opened. Trevor stepped out. Good luck out there, he said. You too. The doors closed. I didn't look back. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office. Actual walls, actual door, when my phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. Andrew Whitaker has updated his profile. Curiosity got the better of me. Click. He'd taken a job at a mid-sized firm. Downgrade in title. Downgrade in pay, I'd bet. No mention of his previous role. Just seeking new opportunities in account management. Translation. No one in the industry would touch him with a senior position after the compliance scandal. Closed the app. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel vindication. Felt nothing. He'd buried himself. I just happened to be holding the shovel when he needed someone to blame. That's not revenge. That's consequence. Andrew never contacted me. He didn't need to. The document spoke for me. And that was the most satisfying part of all. Not the termination. Not the new job. Not even the vindication. It was knowing that the truth, boring, meticulous, documented truth, was louder than any lie he could have told. People ask me now if I do anything differently. Honestly, well, I'd still keep records. And still follow up. I'd still trust my gut when something felt wrong. Because the world rewards the loudest voice, the smoothest talker, the person who looks good in meetings. But paper doesn't care about charm. And facts don't care about optics. Know your worth. Document everything. And never argue with someone who's already buried themselves. I learned that the hard way. But I learned it well. These days, I'm managing deals twice the size of the one that got me suspended. My team trusts me. My boss respects me. I sleep well at night. Andrew's still looking for his next opportunity. I don't wish him harm. I don't think about him at all. He made his choices. Made mine. His involved lies and shortcuts and blaming others when things went wrong. Mine involved a notebook, a printer, and the unshakable belief that the truth, given enough time, always surfaces. Did. And I'm still here. That's the real ending. Not revenge. Survival.